Hi, welcome to the Weird World Podcast. My name's Carrie.
I'm Jack.
I'm Dean.
And Dean's gonna tell us something. Is it weird?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. It's a strange story. It's ripped from the pages of yesterday.
Oh.
A little bit of a history, but it's as we promised for quite some time and rarely deliver on.
God.
This is not something that involves murder or mayhem or horrible outcomes or terrible, uncomfortable stories at all.
No mayhem.
No mayhem, really, at all. Although it is kind of about war. I don't know, but
So it's
but in an indirect way.
Okay.
So
I don't like war stories.
this is not really
FYI.
a war story.
Okay.
No. It's a story of genius, really, Carrie. Creative genius.
Oh.
What would you do if you were, we are going to start a little bit with the war. Let's talk about aircraft carriers for a second, okay? So what do you think would happen if the country had this impenetrable, unsinkable material that they could build massive ships with and, take them into the teeth of the enemy and come out unscathed?
I would try to get that same material.
Be a pretty big deal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think so, too. Well, someone did invent this, and this person didn't just invent this amazing material. They also just constantly came up with these brilliant, creative, out-of-the-box ideas throughout World War II, working for the British Empire.
Is this the history of vibranium?
It is not, but that's a
Oh.
good guess. That's a solid guess of that fictional metal.
I'm not even sure what it is, but...
It's a fictional metal from the Black Panther universe.
Oh, okay.
So this person never ceased to come up with these phenomenal ideas to help turn the tide of war in favor of the Allies. So, of course, you all have heard of Geoffrey Nathaniel Pyke. I'm assuming. I mean, this person who did these things would be a legend, a hero, wouldn't he?
No.
Well, Geoffrey Pyke may have been this amazing genius, or he may have been the maddest scientist ever.
I'm going for option 2.
We'll see. Let's let our listeners decide for themselves, as you can as well. So let's start with some background. I know Carrie likes this. Let's do I'm going to do some background this time. I'm starting childhood here. Okay, from birth, as a matter of fact. Geoffrey Pyke had kind of an inauspicious start. His father was a lawyer, and he skipped town in 1898 when Pyke was 5 years old. He did one of the whole, going out for a pack of smokes, never came back kind of a thing.
Yep.
Left the family destitute.
Wow.
His mother, I guess, turned to help to her own family, but she didn't really get along with anybody. She also, quote, made life hell, unquote, for her children. So Pyke's mom, not Mother of the Year.
Well, it sounds like she had a rough time of it.
She did.
How many children were there?
I don't know. More than one.
I'm on her side.
Okay. Yeah, of course you are, Carrie. Even though she was probably a monster. Pyke was sent to a school that was pretty much entirely populated by the children of Army officers. Pyke himself was not that, and he was also an Orthodox Jew. He's been raised by his mom as an Orthodox Jew, and she forced him to dress like that and to keep all the rituals of that in an English boys' school in the early 1900s. That is not cool. I mean, it's not you should practice your religion, et cetera, but under the circumstances, that was just sending her small child into a terrible, terrible situation. And his level of social acceptance was, unsurprisingly, very minimal, since he was the only Orthodox Jew in that school. Again, these are, little military brat English boys. This is not a good sign. So by the age of 13, Pyke, maybe out of rebellion, had become an atheist. But still, the ostracism and the bullying he faced in school would mark him forever. Other students would go on, quote, Pyke hunts.
Oh,
where they'd chase him down and beat him up or just harass him.
Kids are terrible.
Kids are horrible, and little English kids, if I can go by the lyrics of Pink Floyd and certain movies, were the worst of all. So he did not have a happy childhood. But what it left him with was this enduring hatred for the, quote, establishment. or anything that smacked of that. The kind of, especially the English, they have more of an establishment than we do in the United States. And he just, we do have one, but theirs is much more, hierarchical.
Theirs is more established.
Yeah, it is. It's a more established establishment. Still, he eventually found his way into Cambridge, where he followed in the footsteps of his deserting father and studied law.
Oh.
When World War I broke out, though, Pyke was at Cambridge still, but he stopped his studies, and he was only 21 years old now, right? He decided he wanted to become a war correspondent. Just like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help out. I'm going to, go cover the war, bring it back. He got a job with the Daily Chronicle. And that newspaper was able somehow to wrangle a passport from a sailor in the U.S. Navy. And so they used this, I don't know how. So they got the passport of an American sailor, and they gave it to Pyke and said, hey, why don't you try to sneak into Germany with this passport? America was not at war yet, as you know. So they said, go through Denmark and come on down and make your way to Berlin with this fake passport and see what you can see and send back dispatches, right? Pyke was able to do this successfully. He was the first Englishman since the start of World War I to successfully get into Germany and to be able to send back some information. So he lasted 6 days, unfortunately, doing this.
Well,
That's not bad, I guess. After 6 days, the German police came knocking on the door of the house where he had like a bed sit. He was renting a room in this house, and they knock. Do you have this, American sailor with an English accent here? Yeah, okay. So they arrested him, took him to a prison. He thought, I'm dead.
Yeah.
They're going to execute me as a spy, which he, more or less was. However, after a few days, he's always a very logical guy. So after a few days, he thought to himself, you know what? I think they're going to let me live. Why? What was his rationale? He said, why would they waste good money on my upkeep and food for 4 days if they're just going to shoot me on the 5th? So I don't think they're going to shoot me.
That's not the greatest logic ever.
no, it's not.
It was to Geoffrey Pyke. He was kind of almost just coldly rational in his own way, right? You'll see, at the very end, you'll see something incredibly rational, which is also fairly horrible. He was in prison, though, and he was, not fed enough food. He was kept in a small cell in kind of a solitary confinement. He hungered for books and as well as food, and he eventually was taken to an internment camp for war prisoners called Ruhleben. And I guess I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it right. It's Ruhleben, but it was kind of the main prisoner of war camp in Germany. It held lots of folks, right? And there, it's like he was cold, he was hungry, he got double pneumonia, he got food poisoning, but he survived. And he just became obsessed with escaping, and it's considered impossible. His fellow inmates said, "Nope, not going to happen. Don't try. You'll just get caught, and they'll probably shoot you." But a fellow Englishman named Edward Falk said, "I'm game. I'll try to escape with you. Let's get after this. Let's start planning." So they started working out to get nice and fit, because they figured they're going to have to hike to the Dutch or Danish frontier, and so kind of taking the back roads, I guess, or swamps or whatever. So they thought they'd get fit. They started doing calisthenics, or regimen of calisthenics, to get nice and fit for the walk, for the hike, and Pyke. He was very mathematical. He was very logically minded. He started keeping statistics. He started talking to the old timers there and gathering statistics on escape attempts and how, what they had done and how successful or not successful they were. I guess they were very much not successful, but I guess he was studying what had gone wrong, kind of a thing. So the numbers weren't good, but didn't matter. He was going to do it differently. So on July 9th, 1915, the two men gave it a try. They snuck into like a little hut, I guess, where they kept sports equipment. I guess they let them exercise.
Oh, okay.
Well, they let him play tennis.
Dodgeball.
Maybe. Or getting POW dodgeball. That'd be good. They hid under a bunch of tennis nets. They snuck in there, hid under a bunch of tennis nets, and waited for night to fall. When it did, they got out of the hut. They scrambled over the fence, and they made a break for it. They made their run, headed
That
west.
sounds shockingly easy.
It does sound
It
weirdly easy,
does.
doesn't it?
No barbed wire?
Yeah, I think there
atop
was
that
barbed
wall?
wire, yes, but they had a plan. I don't know, rugs. I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't go into a lot of detail.
Tennis nets.
Maybe they did. Maybe they tossed over the tennis nets over
Yeah.
the barbed wire. Sure. So they got their way to a tram station, and they rode that into Berlin. There, they were able to, I don't know, they must have had some money because they bought some new clothes, secondhand, let's assume. They're German Goodwill, I think it's called. And they got these clothes, so they're no longer dressed like prisoners. If they were dressed like prisoners on the tram, I'm a little confused how that worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently it did. I don't know how exactly. So from Berlin, they just headed west, and it was about 80 miles, 130 kilometers, to the Dutch border. So they started going west, right? They had to go through bogs. There were barbed wire fences along the way. They had to keep out of sight, of course. Finally, after several days of slogging through, they were inside of the border. They can see what they just ahead of them. So they said, you know what? It's nighttime, or it's almost night. Let's rest. Let's wait till it's, dark 100 or whatever. They ate the rest of their food, and they slept for a little bit to get up and make the final dash for the border. Tragically, while they were sleeping, they were discovered by an armed soldier that was reconnoitering the area.
Oh, no.
Less tragically, the soldier was Dutch.
Oh.
And he told them that, hey, guys, you're already 50 yards into Dutch territory. You passed the border before already. You're fine. Come with me. So they had successfully escaped from Germany in 1915. Yeah. It's a pretty amazing story. And his story of captivity and escape was a huge hit when he got back to England. He published it in his newspaper, the Daily Chronicle. And big story at the time. And the British authorities thought, that seemed a little easy, and I guess they're a hair suspicious of the story, but no matter, it became a big hit. So the Daily Chronicle said, hey, we want you to write more things about that, about the war, and he said, hard pass. Pyke said, I don't want to be a war correspondent anymore.
Yeah.
Don't want to write for you. I'm out. So he, toward the end of the war, in March of 2018, I'm skipping ahead, by the way. I don't know what he did for the rest of the war. He married Margaret Amy Chubb. He married her 3 months after meeting her, and then pretty soon they started a family. He kind of just sort of meandered through the interwar period. It seems like he became like a stockbroker and commodities broker. I don't know how he got into that, but he got into brokerage, and he actually did pretty well. And when his son David was born, he then almost immediately became obsessed with the education of the child. Like he became like, I want to be this education expert now. I want to have the most modern, up-to-date education for my kid David, and see what happens. He's very progressive. So he, not trusting any school to have the latest and greatest, he decided to start a school right there in his own house. And he did, with his first student being David.
Wait, did he ever graduate from, did he go back to
I think
college?
he did. I think he went back to Cambridge and got his degrees, yes.
Okay.
That's probably what he did during the rest of the war. Went back to school.
Okay.
Let's assume.
Okay.
So he established a school for children in his home, and he hired a psychologist, a very progressive female psychologist, to run it for him. He called the school the Malting House School. And it was, like I said, it was super progressive. The children would never be disciplined ever for anything. The children were considered plants, quote unquote, that were there to grow.
Oh.
And no, good thing, not like plant people. This is not a whore. This is not Robert. This is not Stein. What's that guy's name?
R.L. Stein.
R.L. Stein. Robert, I'm assuming. Bobby. The school was also, the teachers were not called teachers. They were co-investigators.
What?
They're just investigating the world around them, Carrie. That's what they're there to do.
The teachers were?
The students were, and the teachers were investigating with them. They were co-investigators.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the school was way ahead of its time.
It's very Montessori-ish.
It is a little bit. And actually, it was a lot of progressive educators gave it high marks, but it wasn't a huge financial success. It sort of struggled. He was subsidizing it with his stockbroker and commodities broking money. But when he made a bad play on the market and essentially was forced into bankruptcy, the school had to be closed. There was not enough money to run it. Margaret then left him, first
Aw.
wife, and Pyke became just a near recluse for a while. For the next few years, he survived on handouts from friends, essentially.
Wow.
Friends and allies. But as the 1930s wore on, and the Nazis became they took over Germany and became more and more powerful on the international stage and more threatening, Pyke, remember, he was Jewish, he was roused from his depression to fight the anti-Semitism of Hitler. So he wrote articles about them in magazines. He raised money for the cause against anti-Semitism and against the Nazis, and he publicly would urge the British leaders to be more forceful in their condemnations of Hitler, because a lot of the British leaders, even the ones who didn't like Hitler, were pretty weaselly about condemning Hitler, and he would try to pressure them.
Neville.
Yeah, pretty much all of them, to be honest. Most of them. He also, when the Spanish Civil War broke out, he supported the Republican side, which ironically was the good side.
Yes.
In this case, I think unless you're a fascist, then you think it was the bad side. He organized workers. He did a scheme. He kind of showed his first organizational genius here, where I read some of the details, but he organized workers to give kind of their free time to do like work that would raise money that would then buy medical supplies and ambulances and things like that and send them to the Republican cause in Spain. In fact, initially, the trade unions were against this because, like, we don't like the idea of our people working for free for anything. But they warmed up and they helped him eventually. And it became pretty successful. It was actually, the public knew about that. He was able to get a lot of supplies to the Republican cause in Spain, unfortunately, to no avail. And this is also, you see the first spark of his creativity. I guess they didn't have enough cotton, and they needed medical supply, for gauze and things like that, right? So he said, well, what does Spain have a lot of? What does Spain have a lot of?
Girl, I don't know.
Have you heard of Spanish moss?
I have heard of Spanish
Actually,
moss.
this made me out Spanish moss. But he devised a way to use peat moss. Is peat moss different than Spanish moss?
Yes.
It is different. Okay, well,
I don't know.
I ain't no botanist. But they had a lot of peat moss, so he figured out a way to use peat moss, to use it with what cotton they had and turn it into decent medical gauze and augment their cotton with peat moss. So again,
Weird.
Interesting.
thinking he was a smart dude. Soon, though, an even bigger conflagration shadowed Europe. This, of course, was World War II. Pyke was going to be ready to do whatever he could to fight the Nazis in World War II. So let's talk about some of his Pyke dreams. That's what I said. His tireless efforts for the Spanish. Shut the fuck up, Bo.
First of all, tiredless. Second of all, efforts.
I'm going to start over.
Yeah, say it again.
But we're not cutting that out. So
Pyke's tireless efforts and his great ideas.
Yay.
Thank you. Helping Spain had not gone unnoticed, right? So as war loomed, the British civilian leaders called him, said, you can help out. Why don't you be a kind of a civilian advisor for CO, Combined Operations. That was essentially, war operations for the British government. And it was kind of like almost like a sort of a secret think tank, and was headed by none other than Lord Mountbatten.
Oh.
He was a member of the royal family. Remember, he eventually got blown up by terrorists, but he was a distant cousin of Queen Elizabeth, who would become the young lady who would become Queen Elizabeth II. And he was also the uncle of her husband, Prince Philip.
I was going to say,
Because,
royalty.
So he was connected both ways. But he was a big deal. He was eventually, I think he was the Duke of Edinburgh or something like that. Lord Mountbatten was a big royal. He was a big wig, and
I've heard that name before.
Yeah, so have
he was
I.
a huge character. And when he was killed by terrorists, I think the IRA, it was a mega story in the mid-'70s, I think. I'm going by complete memory on that, but I think that it was something like that. It was a big, big deal.
I'll take your word.
So he was relatively young and vigorous, and he really wanted to mix things up. He wanted to innovate. He didn't want the stodgy old same old military kind of strategy. So he was
Lord Mountbatten
Lord
did?
Mountbatten, yeah.
Mountbatten.
Huh, that's
Why.
surprising.
Well, he was still fairly young, and World War I was a lot of the problems in the early stages was the old ways of the military doing them over and over again, and it having the same bad result.
Yeah.
So he wanted to be different in World War II. So he had this combined operations, and he invited in. Well, he thought someone like Pyke, who was this kind of out of the box thinker. He wanted as much of that as possible. So the group was tasked with developing solutions to wartime needs and wants and trying to be as creative and unusual as possible. They really wanted new ideas, new weapons, new strategies, new technology, anything that could be used for the war effort. They wanted to develop it, right? So Pyke was intended to help the military folks by bringing in kind of his civilian ideas and his genius for thinking of new and creative things. Again, Mountbatten thought these military guys are going to do what they always do, what they're trained to do. Let me bring someone here to shake that up, and that was Pyke. Okay?
Okay.
It did not take Pyke long at all to start thinking up
Weird
some
stuff.
Some stuff. No, let's not connotation carry. We'll let the listeners decide if it's weird or not. So you could call them devilishly clever if you want. He would soon kind of be called by his colleagues, quote, Professor Brainstorm.
Oh.
Let's just say that was an appreciation of his genius. Maybe not. So his first big idea actually was before the war started even. It was late 39. War with Germany was imminent. This is just before they invaded Poland. So the thinking was, can we stop this war from happening? Is it too late? Is it inevitable? If so, how could we do that? What's one way? Pyke said, okay, you know what? I have an idea. Maybe we can appeal to Hitler's better angels. Or at least we could maybe force him to bow to the will of his own people because that was so Hitler.
Yeah.
Like that. So Pyke said, okay, let's do this. Let's go and take a public opinion poll in Germany and we'll show the results to Hitler. And if Hitler sees that his German people want peace, then maybe Hitler would realize the error of his ways and not attack the West like it was very clear he was about to do.
He was a tad naive.
So obviously Pyke was someone who understood his psychology brilliantly. But here's the problem. You can't send British pollsters into Germany at the time. Again, war was almost imminent. No British person was going in their right mind, was going into Germany. Certainly Hitler would not allow them to go knock on doors and take a poll. So he thought, okay, let me think. How can we do this? I mean, Pyke's plan then was, I think, genius. You'd be the judge. He was going to recruit a bunch of British students and have them dress like amateur golfers, like college golfers, and go into Germany to play golf. And while they were playing golf, they would have clipboards and they would do polls. So they would, Carrie, let me finish with that look of disdain on your face. So they had golf. They'd carry around golf clubs that looked like golfers, but on the other hand, they'd carry around clipboards. And maybe they were just keeping golf score on those clipboards, Carrie. But in secret, they were gathering the public opinion of the German masses. That was the idea anyway.
Or whoever was at a golf
At a
course.
golf club.
Yeah.
He didn't stop to think about, I don't think sampling was his strong suit. But yeah, the idea was you secretly poll regular Germans with, golf clubs in one hand, a clipboard in the other, and record the results. It was foolproof, in my
Sure.
opinion. So problems arose, though, pretty immediately in the form of that first part, which was recruitment, because it turns out very few British students were really eager to
Yeah.
go into Germany in I think, the summer of 1939. He got a few, though, and he did dress them up in, I'm assuming, the stupid golf pants that stop at the knees and you have the long socks because he would look like an idiot. And so they got there days before Germany invaded Poland. And when that occurred, on the day that occurred, they fled for the border and they
Yep.
barely got out of the country ahead of the Gestapo. So he almost got a few British students murdered or killed,
God.
but they were able to get out. Thankfully, he was able to get them out. So, okay, I grant you idea number one didn't go super well, okay? But let's give him time. So another early idea he had was balloons. I guess he was, I don't know, maybe it was a gender reveal party in 1939 or 40 Britain, because he saw a bunch of balloons let off into the air, right? And that gave him an idea. He said, why can't we just attach microphones to a bunch of balloons, set them up in the air, and then we'll use the sound, they'll record sound, right? And then when German planes come over to bomb the British mainland, we will triangulate with those microphones. We'll triangulate the location and send the RAF right up to them. The Germans will never know it hit them because they don't expect it. We would catch them when they're still over the channel, I guess, before they got to the mainland, and therefore, the Germans would be not wary and not ready for the British counterattack. That was the idea.
Stupid.
You don't like it?
I don't even get it.
Well, it was essentially using balloons as a form of radar. Unfortunately for Pyke, radar was just about to be unveiled. It was already a thing, but it was very, very secret. And it was like, almost immediately he said, you know what? Thanks, Jeff. But we have this other thing that's called radar. We're going to go ahead and use that instead of your balloons with microphones. So basically the balloons were instantly obsolete. I'm not sure. I don't think they would have worked anyway. I'm sure.
That doesn't sound plausible.
I don't know how he would have done that. Are they on wires? I don't know how.
Exactly. Did they have wireless microphones?
Well, they had
at the time?
radio.
But not wireless microphones.
Well, as long as you're hearing them live, I think that if you have an open channel, I don't know. I'm not a radio expert.
I don't know. And also, what was the range of the microphones?
Yeah.
They'd have to have either a ton of microphones.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or
I'm not sure
very
how well
good
he
And
thought.
know exactly where each balloon was.
Hey, he's the idea guy. You guys figure out the technicalities, all right? Later, he thought, okay, early on, Norway was expected to be a potential theater of war. In fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of the attention for where D-Day, they didn't know where the Germans didn't know by 1944 where the Allies were going to land. A lot of people thought it was going to be, a lot of the Germans actually thought it was going to be in Norway. So the Norwegian coast was heavily fortified with those, those pillbox machine gun turrets and things like that that you've seen in Saving Private Ryan. They had those all over Norway as well because they thought the invasion might come through there. So Pyke wanted to kind of think about how you fight in the snow, especially heavy snow. So he dreamed up a thing called the Weasel. This would be kind of an amphibious Jeep that would be able to move through either thick mud or more importantly, deep snow with like a giant screw-like cylinders on either end. It's weird. So it would be able to move right through deep snow that way. And even more brilliantly, this vehicle would be able to jump sideways to avoid enemy bombs. So if you saw a bomb coming for you, I don't know, you push a button and it jumps sideways real quick somehow. So that was his idea anyway. Reaction from Lord Mountbatten was very positive. He loved Pyke.
You guys both keep saying Lord Mountbatten.
No, Mountbatten.
You said it right that time, but the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that, you guys Lord Mountbatten.
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 So Lord Mountbatten loved his gumption, his willingness to innovate. Reaction from the generals, though, a little less positive, actually, it turns out. A little less enthusiastic. They thought he was fucking nuts. They thought he was crazy. Literally crazy.
Yeah.
But now Mountbatten, I guess, early on was kind of Mountbatten. Not Mountbatten.
Yeah.
Jack's bullying me, listeners. So Mountbatten was able to take over the CO, the Combined Operations, as its head in October of 1941. Before that, I guess he was just like, I'm a royal and I'm involved with this thing. But he was actually, he replaced the general who was in charge with himself in October 1941. Jeez. And he gave the go-ahead for the previously rejected Weasel to be developed.
Of course.
So Mountbatten, I guess they developed the idea. They have it on paper. They bring the idea to the attention of Prime Minister Winston Churchill in, I guess, late 1941. Churchill was less impressed. He would later write in his notes of that meeting, quote, "Never in the history of human conflict will so few immobilize so many." He thought it'd be just super slow and even not get through the snow if they're fighting in that kind of a cold theater like that.
Yeah.
Although it turns out a modified version of the Weasel was developed in Canada and was manufactured in the United States, and eventually it was deployed in Italy, up in the snows, in the mountains of Italy.
Wow.
As it was called the M29 vehicle. I've seen a picture. We'll hopefully put a picture, but it does have these these corkscrew-like, it looks tank-like, but it's not those rolling things. It's a screw. It's pretty cool, actually. It is tank-like vehicle, though, and it was, again, operated in snowy, so it didn't make a big, impact on the war, but it was a thing. So Pyke didn't help himself with his appearance.
Oh no, he had crazy hair.
He had crazy everything. He dressed like a absolute slob. He dressed in old, often shabby, patched up or needed patching kind of clothes. And the fly of his trousers was always wide open.
What?
Always. Not sometimes, always, though. And it was intentional. He thought an open fly was good for his health.
Okay.
He truly did. He even introduced himself to the Canadian Prime Minister, Mackenzie King, who was in the UK for a visit, with just ratty clothes and a wide open fly. And this is like, here's our scientific creative genius here, Mr. Canadian Prime Minister.
Well, it's like the absent-minded professor.
A little bit, yeah. He also usually worked from bed.
Oh.
He would often call military brass to his apartment while in bed to discuss his latest notion, and he always slept naked. So
Oh my God.
they would literally get to his room. They'd find him naked in bed, surrounded by piles of papers, bottles, cigarettes, notebooks, everything with his scrawled little fantasies and pictures and words, just trying to pour out everything and share. Do this, do that. Here's a great idea. Here's a great idea. And they just thought they literally thought he was insane.
He's just a bit eccentric.
A little bit, yeah. He once called Strategic Operations Headquarters, where the war folks were, and that's where Lord Mountbatten had his office. And he asked for, I guess whoever answered the phone wasn't good enough. He wanted an officer to come and talk to him on the phone. So an officer got there and he said, "Okay, write this down." And he started dictating.
Oh my God. He called for the manager.
He said, "I have an urgent memo. It's for Mountbatten's eyes only. Start writing." He went on for over an hour.
Oh my God.
To this
Lord.
officer, just going blah, 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 blah. He was expected to take down everything. And when did he make that phone call? 5 a.m.
I was going to say 3 a.m.
Yeah. So was not making fans.
This man is crazy. Could you imagine if he was around when email came around? Oh God, nobody would know peace.
Or instant messaging. Oh my God, I'd be off team so fast if he was on. Often after these bouts of this manic activity, he would fall into a funk and not get out of bed for days and days. So he may have been bipolar now or something like that. We don't. I don't want to.
Retroactively
Right.
diagnosed.
Yeah.
Diagnosed.
He
But
may
would
be
go,
something.
He would go in these up and down phases.
Manic, depressive episodes.
Yes, he'd go manic for long and think of all these ideas, and then he'd just sit in his bed for days and days and days. His secretary knew when these kind of fits of melancholy were coming on because he would start humming to himself.
Ew.
It's like, okay, he's humming to himself. That's not good. Because soon after, every time he started humming to himself, he would just go into the room, shut the door, and not come out for days.
Huh.
That's weird.
And by the way, remember, he would disappear. He wasn't going into the office or anything like that. And this is a guy who knew a lot of secrets. You probably don't want, and people are like, where's Pyke again? Because he knows shit. And if he disappears, maybe not a great thing for intelligence operatives there. So he was not done. Geoffrey Pyke was just getting warm. Oil. Big issue for the British in the war against Germany was oil. It's a huge issue, right? Oil was the lifeblood of war for Germany as much as the Allies. If anything, more for Germany, because Britain could get plenty of oil from the U.S. We had plenty of oil. Texas.
Yeah.
Alaska. Wait.
Back then, probably is mostly from the South. But anyway, we had lots of oil, and British overseas territories had a lot of oil too. So oil wasn't nearly as scarce as to the Allies as it was to the Germans. The Germans, it turns out, they had no domestic oil, but they did have a reliable fascist client state in Romania on the Black Sea, which had lots and lots of oil. So Romania was critical to the German war effort because of the oil it supplied. Without that oil, the German war effort would be hampered severely. So the British brass asked Pyke, "What do you think? How could we disrupt that oil flow from Romania to Germany?" Pyke said, I'll think of something for you.
Uh-oh.
Trust me. I'll have an idea for you. Give me a couple of days. So,
Make the road real icy.
well, you know what? At first, you're not that far off.
Oh,
because
shit.
I'm assuming that Pyke had been to the Swiss Alps. I'm assuming he was an avid skier because his first plan was to send St. Bernard dogs with brandy barrels around their necks into the oil fields where the Romanian soldiers who guarded the oil fields
Kept drunk?
they would be drunk.
Oh, my
They would
God.
get the brandy off the dogs, think, oh, this is Well, how nice. Who sent these? Oh, who cares? They've got good brandy, and they would drink the brandy and get wasted. And
This sounds like a cartoon.
This is literally Wile E. Coyote. This man is Wile E. Coyote in the war version.
Hold your assessment.
No. I have enough evidence.
And then he said, okay, when they're drunk on brandy from these St. Bernards, we'll attack. And the British could time their attack for maximum drunkenness.
The Romans kind of did something similar with honey and bees.
There you go. Okay, then. I think it's
Well,
brilliant.
did it work? Did they do it? Did it work? I think we'd know if it did.
No.
I mean, the idea was clearly sound, but the British general said, we're going to pass on that one.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Or maybe they didn't ask if he had anything else, but he did have something else.
Put the dogs in danger, too. I don't like that.
That's true. That's true.
I don't think they would have cared.
No, I don't think they would have either.
Yeah, there are war.
Yeah.
Well, they send St. Bernards up to like avalanche areas, right?
Yeah, but that's their natural habitat.
Yeah, still. There might be a
It's not their natural habitat at all.
the Swiss Alps. I don't know if that is or not, but
Dogs don't really have a natural
No.
habitat.
what if they have an after avalanche, like an afterquake? But I don't know. I'm worried about the dogs. Anyway,
I am too.
I'm less worried about Pyke's next idea. Was he said, okay, you know what? Forget the St. Bernards. How about instead of St. Bernards doing that, we have actual human women
Oh,
What
even
the
better.
fuck?
bring the brandy to the oil fields. This way, the soldiers would not only get drunk, but they'd be distracted by these
Boobs.
very attractive ladies bringing them booze.
And
Boobs and
boobs and
booze.
booze.
Is there anything more distracting to a Romanian soldier?
And then it's
I don't think so.
Halloween.
So he actually presented this plan to the British leaders. Said, here's my idea. You have a bunch of hot ladies bring brandy into these Romanian soldiers, get them drunk, we attack. You like
What?
it?
What women?
I don't
British
know.
women? Don't think that would work.
I guess, I don't know. Romanian women, he wasn't super clear. He just said women, okay? The British generals were lukewarm to the proposal at best. And so he said, you know what? I'm not done. I've got a backup plan. I've got a plan C. He said, you know what? Oil doesn't like fire.
Oh, no. I was going to say that jokingly. Earlier, I was going to say, burn it.
Fire is
Oh,
no friend
no.
to oil, right? So here's the idea. The British could send spies into the fields, right? Secretly at night, I guess.
Well, yeah, they're
and
spies.
and they would start oil fires, right? And then they would get the hell out of there. And in their place, British commandos could dress up in perfect replica Romanian fire outfits with like Romanian fire engines and, ambulances and sirens wailing, go onto the oil fields to put out the fires. But no. What's in those hoses is not
Gas.
just water. It's water mixed with an incendiary device that would make the fires much, much worse. So as they're putting out the fires, these Romanian firefighter replica dressed British commandos, they would actually be
Making it worse.
inflaming the flames right under the noses of those Romanian soldier guards.
What were they going to do when the real Romanian firefighters show
Don't
up?
question it, just do it, says Dora. So that's, what do you think? That's not a bad idea. It would cripple Germany. It was genius. So unfortunately, cooler heads prevailed because, damn it, the plan was never implemented. I mean, that is sad because that would make a brilliant black comedy, like an appropriate time later, like 20 years, let's say. They could have made a British comedy. I'm thinking Peter Sellers. Maybe Sir Larry Olivier wants to do some lighter fare. He's sick of Shakespeare, maybe. You get Steve McQueen.
Sick of blackface.
Steve McQueen, you have an American Steve McQueen to open up that North American box office. He could be like an American POW who escaped, and the British said, well, how about you help us do this? Well,
Yeah.
it writes itself. So, I don't know. It's too bad they didn't try that. That would have been great.
No, I'm okay with them not trying it and burning
Yeah.
thousands of gallons of
Hey,
gasoline,
you
basically.
got to win a war, all right?
No, fuck war.
Okay.
War's the
Guess
worst
what?
thing ever.
The Nazis didn't think that, and they're the
Oh, I
ones who
do.
are waging it.
I have a lot of disagreements with the Nazis.
Well, okay. So did everyone else. But that was not the end of Pyke, even though they said no to this, and a long series of no's to him. He was not done. Okay, so World War II, as I mentioned earlier, was not just the Russian front. It wasn't just, France and Germany. It was again, Norway. And a lot of people thought Norway was going to be a theater of war. And also, the Nazis, however, had taken over Scandinavia. right? They took, except for Sweden, which they sort of had a tacit agreement with Sweden. You keep mining and selling us iron ore, and we won't take you over. So Sweden remained quote unquote neutral, but sold iron and timber, I believe, to the Nazis throughout the war.
Oof.
So the Nazis had control of Scandinavia. And again, as I mentioned, the Allies were considering Norway as the entry point for the invasion of the continent after Italy, instead of Normandy. And the Germans had fortified it and were considering that as well. They thought that was a likely entry point as well. So Geoffrey Pyke thought, okay, I'm not going to rest on my laurels with the weasel. Let me think more about fighting in cold climate, in snow. So he designed a motorized sled that would be controlled by a soldier, but the soldier wouldn't be on the sled, because what is Norway, the mountains of Norway, famous for? Or what do they have a lot of in Norway?
What,
Snow?
bitch?
They have
Trees.
They have trees, but they also have crevasses.
Oh.
Almost
Girl.
invisible crevasses.
Like, that is the thing that everybody knows about
You should
Norway.
know Norwegian crevasses. They're very dangerous. Well, Pyke did. So he thought, look, let's not have the soldier riding these motorized sleds be on the sledge. We'll have him trail it. And you can have like reins, and you can use the reins to control the steering of the sledge. And therefore, if he saw, 40 feet ahead, and if he saw it go into a crevasse, he just lets go, and he doesn't, and the soldier lives. That was his idea. And I think it's a very good one.
I mean, out of all the ideas he's had so far, this is probably the most, or I guess, least crazy.
Well, the British soldiers disagreed because they tried it out, and it turned out that a lone person walking on white snow was an incredibly easy target for German snipers to kill.
That makes a
Yeah.
lot of
So,
sense. Well,
The soldiers,
camouflage.
not fans of it, and no, so it went nowhere.
They should have been all white.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
They have
You're right.
camouflage for snow.
I suppose they do. Well,
They didn't think of that?
they didn't.
I
don't
guess,
know.
Geoffrey, you didn't think of that?
No matter, though, he had a plan B for the sleds. He was not
Of
done with these
course.
motorized sleds. He said, you know what? Here's an idea. How about we use those sleds and we entice the Germans to follow you and get fairly close. In fact, let's do that by what we'll do is we'll ride them up a nice steep hill, right? So you ride up a steep hill. You're going slow because it's a steep hill. The Germans see you and say, easy pickings. They come after you. What do you do then? You step off the damn thing, because loaded in your sled in crates is torpedoes. So you simply step off, I guess put in reverse, and have the sled roll back down the hill into the pursuing Germans and blow them up.
Oh.
That's pretty good. Pyke, though, remember, was a humanitarian. So he thought, well, wait, hold on. What if one of these sleds comes into possession of civilians? He thought, I don't want anybody to get hurt with this torpedo. So they would write in German on the crate that held the torpedo something to warn people away so they wouldn't touch it or go near it. One of his ideas was danger, secret Gestapo death ray. So I was like, no German. Another one would say, it was supposed to say like, latrine for officers only, because he thought the Germans were like super obedient and they would never go mess with that or something like that because it's for officers only. But
Why not in Norwegian?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
So any innocent young German in Norway would surely stay away from the Gestapo death ray, was his idea. So again, the downhill torpedo sled was also nixed, unfortunately. And he thought, okay, you know what? We've got another problem. Again, as invasion of the continent, the mainland, became imminent, one thing that's true, like the French coast, let's say, the French coast doesn't have a lot of natural harbors. There's a lot of just beaches and sand, right? Mm-hmm. So it's tough to get supplies and people on there like that. So he thought, okay, here, you know how we can do that? You know how we can get supplies onto the beachhead? Pipes. We use pipes. We just pump small material through these 4 or 6 inch pipes from boats underwater, and then they come out on the beach, and you pump them there, and they just plop them onto the beach, right? Onto the land. He said, and maybe we can build bigger pipes to get larger materials. And so someone said, the materials just sit there. We need people. You can see where this is going.
Oh,
we need
God.
people to use those materials. So Pyke said, fine.
Make them even bigger.
We will just make 2-foot pipes, and we will I guess,
my God.
pneumatically shoot human beings, soldiers, through pipes, underwater, and onto the beachhead. He said,
like they're male.
it's kind of like, I guess his mechanism was used in pressure, and it also used something like a plumber's weasel kind of a thing, like you know that thing that pushes
an auger,
something like that. I'm not sure exactly what. It's
weird.
Some combination of those two things. But of course, remember, they'd be underwater and they'd be in a pipe for a long time. So he said, no problem, we'll give them a supply of oxygen. And someone else said, well, how about claustrophobia? It's going to be really freaky in there. He said, that's not a problem. We'll just use drugs. We'll give them barbiturates and they'll be calm. And he said, well, maybe we don't want them to be sleepy when they get to the land. So he said, okay, well, how about we send them in pairs so they'll have someone to talk to while they're going through the pipe, the darkness in the water, and breathing oxygen.
Oh, man.
This was his main idea. Sure, people scoffed at Pyke.
No, they should.
And he was kind of pissy about it. He said, well, it's safer than like nighttime parachuting into enemy territory, or it's also better than being bombed on beaches. Now, isn't it? Was his retort.
I don't know if it is.
He may have been right about that last part.
Maybe about that last part, but it's also not possible.
No, it's probably not.
So
it's just he was not one to think about the human side of things, except for his torpedoes. So finally, just when even Mountbatten was beginning to think that Pyke might be more mad than genius, and his support was flailing. Yeah, it took a while. Pyke brought out his ace in the hole that he had long had up his sleeve. He revealed his most triumphant idea yet, the Habakkuk. Project Habakkuk was born with Pyke's brilliant idea.
What are you saying?
Habakkuk. Habakkuk.
Habakkuk. Take
Habakkuk.
Take a cook.
It means something and something. I just don't know what. I'm sure.
It sounds Scandinavian.
Or German, maybe.
A little bit. Look it up.
The KK.
I didn't. Sorry about that. He thought, okay, the Habakkuk is going to be big. It's going to be more than aircraft carrier big, as in like maybe a half-mile long big.
Jesus.
But we're not going to make this from, whatever, steel and concrete like you'd make a giant, because you couldn't make an aircraft carrier that big. No. The Habakkuk would be made entirely out of ice.
Oh.
Have you heard about this?
I have.
It's actually, it had, we're going to talk about it now, but it had some legs. There was some dispute over exactly how he made it. He apparently reinforced it with like wood shavings and or sand. It wasn't literally just ice, but it was somehow reinforced, probably with wood shavings.
Wait, Habakkuk
is
a Hebrew prophet of the 7th century BC who prophesied an imminent Chaldean invasion.
Chaldean invasion? Okay, he saw the soldiers on the frontier and he said, oh, no, they're going to invade, I swear to God. The perfect name then. I don't know. Some perfect,
I guess.
Jeffrey, perfect.
Yeah.
He liked the way it sounded. He said, I want to say cook.
Really, he liked Habakkuk. Pyke, he called this ice-based material Pycrete. Pycrete, get it?
Yeah.
Concrete? Because, remember, he was fully aware of his insatiable genius. He boasted that it was strong as concrete, but much, much lighter than concrete. And he devised a way to have sort of onboard refrigeration machines that could keep it cold, and so it wouldn't melt very quickly when it got into warmer seas. Besides, as everyone knew, every ship captain probably knew, icebergs actually can linger much longer in warm water than people think they can. They don't break up for a long time. That's why, the Titanic, was in obviously not frozen water.
Yeah.
They actually can float away and last for quite a while. And so, at least initially, Pyke's first idea was to essentially build almost like giant icebergs and use them as like floating islands that would be floating, movable sea bases and air bases for the Allies. And that was the initial idea. It's not insane. But soon this idea kind of morphed into big ships, huge ships, like giant oversized aircraft carriers as well. Because the idea is that you can make 30 foot thick. His ships are going to be 30 foot thick sides, just impenetrable. They'd be impregnable by normal, weapons of war at this time. And these mega ships would be able to go wherever they wanted and be pretty much unsinkable. Ice is also unsinkable, so the Nazis couldn't do a damn thing about it. They'd be over 2,000 feet long, right? Which is, by the way, is twice as long as the Queen Mary. the
Wow.
huge ocean liner in Long Beach, California. And the Habakkuk's would be able, he thought maybe they could lead like an invasion force. And they were so big that normal aircraft carriers have just, you've seen them, they have those kind of smaller fighter jets, right? Maybe fighter bombers on. These would be big enough to have traditional, much larger bomber jets and supply aircraft in addition to the smaller fighters, because they're so huge. They can carry much, much more weight and more supplies and bigger planes than any normal aircraft carrier could. So it's actually, if this would work, it'd be pretty amazing. When they're in attack mode, they would have like a flotilla of ships around them, he thought, and they would go into an enemy harbor, say, right? And they would take it over, and they would then, he devised ice guns. I don't know, he didn't call them that, but essentially he thought of a way, he thought we could super cool water, there's a way to make water below freezing but still be liquefied. Mm-hmm. So he would use that technology and have like ice shooting cannons, and would go into the harbor in this impregnable ship, this Pykrete made ship, and turn the ice cannons onto all the German ships and freeze them and disable them. It was,
would freezing a ship disable it?
I think so. I feel like it would.
Shit, probably.
He had invented the arsenal of Mr. Freeze before Mr. Freeze was invented by the creators of Batman. Many years later, 1959. I looked that up, but not Habakkuk. So Pyke theorized that these big ships so they cruise into the sea base, they shower the Nazi warships with cold water, freeze them, encase them. They would probably surrender, the people left that weren't dead, he assumed. And then the Allies would then blockade the harbor with giant blocks of Pykrete, meaning the Germans couldn't counterattack. So they couldn't send ships into the harbor to attack them. They would be blockaded out of it. So they'd have like free reign in this harbor, protected by these Pykrete blockades. And then what would happen, then these commandos would go ashore and spread out over the mainland, I guess, and use some more of those ice guns, and then mess with infrastructure, like shoot them over ice up railway tunnels or things like that, and bringing transport to a grinding halt, and just generally messing with the function of that territory wherever it was, at least until it got really warm.
Yeah,
warmer later on, but until then, watch out. Mr. Freeze was going to ice up your harbor and your railway tunnels and shit like that. So parts of the British brass loved it. It was actually like, wait a second, you might be onto something here. Or at least they didn't think it was entirely nuts, because ice floated. Ice is virtually unseekable. It's very tough. Solid blocks of ice are extremely tough. And as I mentioned, these big blocks of ice, if it's big enough, it can survive in even relatively warm water for quite a while. So again, Lord Mountbatten was enamored. So he supposedly took a big chunk of Pykrete, a big sample chunk of Pykrete. He ran into Winston Churchill's bathroom where the Prime Minister was bathing, and he dropped a chunk of Pykrete into his steaming hot bath and said, "Wait, look, that thing's not going to melt." And
it melted.
This is Pyke. He's a genius. Churchill, apparently, he fished up the Pykrete from his floppy old junk, and he said, "Oh my God, you're right. This thing's not melting. Let's do this." Winston Churchill was on board.
Wow.
He sent a memo to the cabinet that had most secret stamped on it, and it said, quote, "I attach the greatest importance to the prompt examination of these ideas. The advantages of a floating island or islands, even if only used as refueling depots for aircraft, are so dazzling that they do not need at the moment to be discussed." So he was, again, this is the early part before Pyke thought, okay, we can turn these into warships. They were going to be these floating sea bases, essentially. So Mountbatten told Pyke, okay, bro, this is happening. You get this super material ready for trials, and this is going to happen. So Pyke started making the Pykrete. To maintain his secrecy, he worked in his disused basement butcher's meat locker in the Smithfield Market area of London. That's the famous market area where the butchers have been for centuries. And he started making his Pykrete. He's ready for crunch time. Crunch time is August in 1943. in
Uh-oh.
Quebec. They're at the Chateau Frontenac Hotel in Quebec. Jack's like, oh, I've stayed there.
I've heard of it. I have a sticker of it. I do.
The mints on the pillows are delicious.
It's a famous hotel.
It's a
in
very famous
Quebec,
hotel.
You bitch.
Well, at this time, a bunch of the brass from the U.S., Canada, and Britain were meeting, right? So they sent Pyke over there to show him and demonstrate the powers and wonders of pykrete, right? So Pyke, again, took a big sample. He walked in the middle of the room where they had a table. So they're all gathered around this table. He put the pykrete in the middle of the table, stepped back, reached into the jacket, his coat, pulled out a gun, and shot the sample of pykrete right there in front of the generals and admirals and people like that.
Let me just risk everybody's life.
Now, here's the thing. The pykrete was unscathed.
The bullet ricocheted off
I
it
was just-
and killed Winston Churchill.
Yes, for the general that got his
course.
eye blown out.
A bullet ricocheted off a lamp and then grazed the leg of Fleet Admiral Ernest King. And he was not happy about that, but it was well worth it. He had demonstrated how powerful his pykrete was. So the Allies quickly fell in line. They loved it. Let's do it.
How is there not a movie made of this? I want to know.
I don't know.
There is. It's called the Looney Tunes.
The American and British leaders said, we're going to build this thing and see if it can help us in the war effort. So development started, right? And then something was amiss, Pyke noticed. Because Pyke noticed after a while, he was told, this is being developed. He was not getting any phone calls. He was not being invited to any development meetings or anything like that whatsoever. He was hearing nothing about his invention or how it was going. Things were happening without him because Pyke had been completely frozen out of his own project.
Oops.
Could it have been the telegram he had earlier sent to Mountbatten that read simply, quote, Chief of Naval Construction is an old woman, signed Pyke. Remember, Chief of Naval Construction would be in charge of this. That might have hurt his chances of being on the team, maybe. Didn't help, I'm sure. It also could have been the fact that other scientists said that Pyke's idea of the whole weaponizing super cold water was ridiculous and nonsense. So they liked the pykrete thing, but his other ideas, other scientists were saying, that's crazy, it cannot work. So he was essentially sidelined, unfortunately, sadly, I think.
I don't know about that.
Well, they did develop a prototype. A big hunk of pykrete. I don't know if it's shaped like a ship or something, but they got together a giant hunk of pykrete and they put it out on a lake in Canada, and the sort of almost to mimic the test that had been done on Churchill's bathroom, right? They said if that thing can last the summer, we're good to go. Let's do this. So, what do you think happened?
I think it melted.
I do too.
Nope.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lasted the entire summer. Good to
Well,
go.
Yeah, ice is good at staying.
But this process took time. It took a few months to do that, right?
Yeah.
By the time the melting test was completed,
The war was over.
No, the war wasn't over, but the Allied invasion of Normandy was kind of the planning for it was underway. And remember, once the Allies had that toehold in France, they didn't really need floating islands really anywhere. Once they had a part of the mainland, the rest of the war would be fought on land, effectively, essentially.
Yeah.
Mostly, certainly, at least in the European theater. So they didn't really need the floating islands for that. They didn't really need harbor-busting ships because, again, there weren't a lot of harbors along the European coast that they needed to go in and attack. And also, aircraft flight times had gotten longer. In the meantime, we had quick advances in how long they could remain in the air without having to refuel. And then Portugal had finally come through and allowed the Allies to use the Azores Island in the mid-Atlantic as a refueling base. So they much less needed these floating islands. And, by the way, they had estimated cost for this, and it would be massively expensive to build this pykrete to island size or ship size or something like that. So there just wasn't enough time or need or resources by the time they had kind of tested it and said this could work for it to be built. And so they never built a fleet of Habakkuk's, sadly, in my opinion.
Well.
Plus, weirdly, and we'll show this on our website or somewhere, there was a Superman comic strip where Supes discovered a Nazi sea base disguised as an iceberg. It came out in March of 1943 when the Habakkuk was under development, but in the early stages of its development. It's like Superman is like, what's that iceberg doing there? And he uses his X-ray vision or something, and it shows a cutaway that's on the strip, and it shows like a bunch of Nazi soldiers in there. He says, "Okay, it's on." He goes and he attacks the base.
Yeah.
But that's a little weird. Was it leaked or something, or was it just the Superman writers being amazingly convergent creativity? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that one. There's no new ideas.
Yep, coincidence.
So the rest of the war, I think he was pretty much sidelined. He didn't really help anymore. The British government, after the war, they let Pyke patent Pykrete almost as a gimme. Okay, we kind of screwed you in that. So if you want to patent it and use it for civilian use, go for it. But he was kind of embittered, and he was very sick. It was never revealed exactly what he was sick, but he was in ailing health, so he actually never got around to filing a patent for Pykrete and using it in civilian use. But he was not completely done. He still had some grand plans. What did Europe have a lot of after World War II? I know, Chuck
Why are
hates
you
these
quizzing us so much?
You didn't have a lot
Rubble?
of unemployed people.
Yeah.
Idle hands.
Dead bitches? Like,
No, live people who didn't have jobs, right?
Yes.
But what it didn't have a lot of was fuel. Coal, for instance, was still the backbone of the fuel system. Didn't have a lot of fuel, had a lot of people. So Pyke says, boom, I can fix this. He said, you know what we'll do? Instead of using coal to, propel railways, rail cars, we'll use people. I'll devise a bicycle-like contraption to hitch up 20 to 30 unemployed men to pull rail cars along rail lines. And he said, my reason is very simple. He said, a pound of sugar we would use to feed them and give them the energy they need to pull the cars costs less than a pound of coal it would take to fuel that rail car. So this is an obvious thing to do. This is the solution. Let's do this. No one
I'm not sure
did
that
because
that's the exact.
it's not. But you can see how he thinks of humans as just a thing. So, okay, what is it? Sugar's energy. A pound of sugar is cheaper than a pound of coal. This is a no-brainer. Let's use people to do. So that's the kind of, that's the kind of thinking. But again, he was this. It's hard to judge him because obviously he was a bit batshit crazy. But I feel like he was always trying to stretch the possible and think imaginatively. He just wasn't super successful. So in February of 1948, Geoffrey Pyke shaved off his beard that he'd worn all his adult life, and he swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills.
jeez.
Aw.
He was 54 years old. He was done with the world that was done with him. And the Times of London briefly eulogized him as, quote, one of the most original, if unrecognized figures of the present century. And
That was nice.
End of Geoffrey Pyke. He was he had lots of great ideas. Or, well, I shouldn't say great. Lots of ideas.
What happened to his children?
Probably went with the mama.
Yeah,
she left him.
I think they did go with the mom.
Huh.
He was eccentric and always naked in bed. The kids don't need that.
I just feel like his heart was in the right place, except he
Definitely.
was also...
Sometimes.
yeah, except for he did seem to think of humans as things to be treated and impacted.
Means to an end, which is not good.
Well, but then again, you have his thing about education though too, which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
So he was a conundrum.
Some bad people have good ideas sometimes. I just think he was one of those people who didn't have any concept of realism.
Very anti-Nazi, very anti-fascist.
Well, that's a low bar.
Yeah, that's true. Well, is it these days?
It's
Not
still
so
a
much.
low bar,
Still
just
a low
'cause there's a
bar,
bunch of
but
assholes.
plenty of people are jumping right over it.
Yeah.
So, Geoffrey Pyke, the story of the maddest scientist ever.
Well,
Who has been pretty much completely forgotten. I like doing this one.
Yeah.
This is not, there's very few sources on this. I used all of them that I could find because it's generally a forgotten story and a forgotten person.
Yeah.
sorry about it. Well, that's most people. Sorry, Geoffrey.
So I thought we would bring it to you, the Weird World listeners. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thanks, Dean.
You're welcome, Carrie. Want to tell them anything?
Yes. You can reach us at weirdworldpodcast@gmail.com and on Facebook and Instagram and Weird World Pod on Twitter. And thanks for listening.
Thank you. See you guys.
Have fun.